Hello, I'm Justin Allen, and for this EDU80014 case study, I'll be discussing Nelson, a 9-year-old student and former refugee from Sudan, using trauma-informed pedagogical approach with EALD support frame. So Nelson is a Year 9 student, former refugee from Sudan. He's bilingual in Arabic and English, lives with his mother and siblings in public housing. He attends a private Christian boys' school through a refugee scholarship. So he enjoys math. He hopes to study economics at university. He experiences anxiety and possible post-traumatic stress disorder from his past experiences and conflict from Sudan. So these factors do shape his participation, relationships, and sense of belonging in a largely Anglo-Australian middle-class environment. So when we consider Nelson's learning profile, 4 contextual areas really stand out. His cultural and linguistic background, so he's Arabic, which is spoken at home. He will require scaffolding to build a standard Australian English. Socio-economic context, so there's a bit of financial pressure there, and he has to commute a long way to get to school, may affect his concentration and engagement. Trauma and mental health, possible PTSD triggers stemming from conflict between his background in Sudan. His identity and aspirations. So Nelson wanting to study economics and being from war-torn country, 2 focal points that drive his willingness to succeed. So I believe it's derived from his identity, and according to Reunions and Colleagues 2011, this really shaped who he is. So as we can see, the main legislation and institutional support centre around key acts, the Disability and Discrimination Act 1992, or DDDA, the Disability Stands for the Education 2005, or DSE, and the Alice Springs Education Declaration 2019, or Matwant Way 2019. And obviously his schooling and government institutions alongside there too. So under the DDA, mental health conditions such as PTSD are recognized as a disorder when they start to dysregulate learning or behavior. So as you can see from the slide, we've underlined disorder, which is part of PTSD and affects dysregulation. So it does qualify under that legal legislative interpretation there. So the DSE 2005 extends this protection as well, so requiring schools to make reasonable adjustments so students can participate on the same basis as others. So for Nelson, in a typical example, this means quiet spaces, emotional regulation support, and reduced sensory triggers. Excuse me. So the Mapant Way, or Alice Springs Education Declaration 2019, reinforces the moral interpretive. So every young Australian should become a confident, creative individual supported by equity and excellence, regardless of their background or circumstance. Okay, so the nationally consistent collection of data on schools, or NCCD, with disability in conjunction with the NDIS, or National Disability Insurance Scheme, and Nelson School and government and refugee programs can apply for funding or for supportive resources such as teacher aides, language specialists and counselors, or school psychologists. So it's important to know he's a former refugee, but there will still be a lot of overlap and a lot of support from the government to maintain the trajectory that he's on to become part of society, okay, and obviously move away from being a refugee as itself. So mental health support that can address Nelson's PTSD, include the Queensland government through Children Health Queensland program and Beyond Blue 24-hour service. So language and support as an ELD learner exists at the state level with, QATESOL, and the translating and interpreting service at a national level. So there are a few government organisations there that provide a lot of language and mental health support. There are also faith-based organisations which can provide extra support for Nelson, such as Refugee Connect and, of course, his local community church groups. So as previously mentioned, the government's refugee program alongside Multicultural Australia can both liaise with state-level support and state-level services to provide youth and family resources there. So Berger 2019 and Avery 2021 both recommend using predictable routines with structures that reduces PTSD triggers when using trauma-informed classroom practices. So we're moving on to evidence-based teaching strategies and amendments now. So we're looking at what we can actually do in the learning space or classroom environment. So they also suggest that providing quiet spaces and allowing timeout cards for emotional regulation. Brunzell 2016 and Perfect 2016 highlight the use of greetings and check-ins, which would make Nelson feel welcome amongst a white Anglo student background in particular. So it's about making him feel welcome in all these environments, I think, which would take the pressure off him and obviously encourage him to be at school more often. So the Berry Street model by Brunzell 2021 is a holistic trauma-informed pedagogical approach which centers on reducing dysregulation through mental, neuro, and physiological behavior strategies. So by reducing hyperarousal scaffolding, chunking and learning activities, by chunking learning activities, Nelson can work at a pace and setting which accommodates his heightened sensitivity for overload or anxiety, which he might be prone to. So the Berry Street model, continuing, provides a trauma-informed pedagogical approach framework which supports learners through a bottom-up self-regulatory process reinforced by whole class positive behavior through engagement and character building, essential for students like Nelson who really require a sense of belonging. Okay, like we said before in the previous slide, he wants to keep turning up to class and make him feel welcome and part of the school system. So additionally, Yule 2011 and Perfect 2016 recommend modeling and integrating self-regulation, which can demonstrate calm and be a supportive process for behavior and strategies on a whole class basis. So Reunions and Colleagues 2011 also highlight that these tools reduce the risk of further isolation, providing an inclusive environment for all students. So with regards to Nelson potential language barriers, Kitson and Lee 2023 place emphasis on providing visual scaffolding for literacy support. They also strongly encourage collaborative effort between language specialists and teachers to strengthen inclusive learning for ELDS students, where bilingual Arabic and English transitioning for Nelson can occur. So Gibbons in 2002 also showed that providing simplified cognitive version literacy and numeracy can have increased capabilities in both areas. So according to the Queensland Curriculum and Assessment Authority 2019, inclusive teaching involves understanding that literacy and numeracy learning can occur visually and in different contexts as seen from the ACARA General Capability Wheel as well. And there are also examples in this slide too, so like reading aloud, using graphic organizers, etc. So as Nelson's language barrier might prevent him from completing the same tasks immediately as other students, scaffolded learning opportunities must be created. So Tomlinson 2014 and Independent Schools Queensland 2022 together stress the importance of using tiered tasks and paired activities to provide confidence and improve metacognition for lower level ability students. So essentially what that means is we'd like to pair Nelson with students who are a bit more comfortable, a bit more, let's say, relaxed, and hopefully this might instill a bit of confidence in him, as well as obviously trying to improve his metacognitive level so he can mimic or he can see what a model example looks like. He is obviously a confident student, but obviously his anxiety and PTSD might take over in situations where he's either doing individual work or on his own. So using external agencies like the NCCD, NDIS, and Multicultural Australia, for example, awareness of Nelson's emotional status can be monitored, liaising therapists or agency members to coordinate cultural connectivity between school, Nelson, and his family and the community. So in my reflections, I use Fraser's 2008 social justice framework to guide my thoughts overall. I thought that's really what I took away and affected me the most throughout this course and what I resonate with. So it's challenging to redistribute equitable resources accordingly and fairly. However, some students I feel reasonable adjustments such as increased teacher aid support, extra exam time, and differentiated learning support for students with adverse backgrounds. So, as also as highlighted by KEDI 2012, are essential. So, it really balances out and negates the obvious disadvantages they were faced with, such as in Nelson's case, where he's had a traumatic upbringing and he needs a lot of support. Recognizing that Nelson is Sudanese and he is part of the Sudanese Australian community, will preserve his identity and foster positive cultural representation. So also reflecting Fraser 2008 and the Alice Springs Declaration 2019. So lastly, all students must be represented to maintain his voice. Cook say the 2006 promoting including Nelson in decision making regarding his education and well-being. This is echoed by Fraser and KEDI as well, who state that they're essential for a diverse learning community overall. So I feel the promotion of autonomy is key for Nelson's learning needs, which aligns with the APST standards 1.1 and 3.1, helping to overall create stronger academic pathways for him. Thank you for listening.